So it's thank you very much, Mark. Baker McKenzie, thank you for inviting us. I really appreciate it. I'm going to talk a little bit about Revasum, and at some point today, I'm going to tie what I think Australia knows very well, the lithium market, the minerals market, and how we can help affect that market as well. So if you think about investments, what's the trend, right? Electric vehicles, 5G communications, batteries, lithium. Revasum is at the leading edge of that food chain. So I'll tie that all up for you a little bit. Quick overview on the company, and I like to tell people I think we went public for the right reasons, and I think we went public in Australia for exactly the right reasons. I've done 2 IPOs on NASDAQ. In December, we went public. We raised about $30 million US. That deal can't get done in the United States anymore. It's just not. It's too difficult for a small cap company. And I think it's my perspective that the ASX is starting to emerge as the best place. It's a very liquid market. It's a well-regulated market. It's easy to do a public offering, and it's probably half the cost. So we didn't come here by accident. We came to the ASX on purpose because we thought the market was the right kind of market for small mid-cap companies. We only have about a 20% float. We have about 76 million shares inside the company. You can find all these details. And side note, we have our AGM on Monday, so some of this information is going to be new. I'm going to give you a real quick tutorial on the semiconductor industry, and this is important. I want everybody to understand. It's easy to say there's chips in your phone, but where do they come from? Silicon is the second most abundant mineral on Earth. You melt it, you grow this ingot, it gets sliced up, and it goes through hundreds of process steps. And we make machines that do a few of these different process steps. We grind it, we polish it, we give it its perfect shape. All these things, all these devices in your phones, your laptops, your cars come off of this silicon wafer. You print circuits. Mark has some background in that. He knows the leading lithography company that does that. And when these chips are diced up, they're packaged, they go into everything. I don't know if I need an internet-connected refrigerator, but I'm fairly certain I'm going to have one at some point in time. I know my car has more chips in it. Look, you don't have to think about semiconductors. The car you own today has 10 times the chips in it, the ones that you bought 2 years ago. The semiconductor content in cars is exploding. It's one of the fastest growing markets, and obviously your phone. So we make these machines, and I decided to put a video in here because every time somebody comes to visit our company, they always tell me that they didn't really appreciate these machines, how fascinating they are. There's a lot going on. We work with very, very high precision technology. We move multi-100 kilogram assemblies, 1/100th the thickness of your hair. Our expertise is in doing that very precisely and very repeatably every day for these customers around the world, and I'll show you who those are in a minute. And so, who is Revasum? What do? We make these large machines, so there's going to be a few trends I want you to think about. Average selling price today is about $625,000. Over the next 1, 2, 3 years, that number is going to get over $1 million. As we release new products to the market that have different applications and different capabilities, our ASP will naturally go up. Our gross margin will change. Our customer base that we touch will change. We ship about 80% of the revenue is from the machines we make, and then about 20 is spare parts, services, things like that. It's just a recurring revenue. Last year, we had about a 39% gross margin on the machines and about a 50% gross margin on spares and service. That number will continue to grow. But what you don't know is who our customers are, but really that's not so important as it is their customers, right? Mercedes-Benz, Tesla, BMW, Apple. Those companies are driving the revolution of the electrification of cars and 5G. You won't see anything about the large, and Pitt Street knows this, TSMC and Samsung. These are the next level of companies that innovate technology for these customers. Everything that is happening today is happening at the car companies, and I'll talk about that in a second, that are enabling the electrification of cars and 5G communications. And what's happening is the things that we deliver are on the very pointy end of that spear. We are helping them increase output and increase yield and decrease cost. The whole thesis of the semiconductor industry, as you produce more volume on larger substrates, the cost goes down. And that's where we're going. But I'll tell you a little bit about the markets and where we play, and I'll give you some tutorials here. 5 years ago, did you think your car was going to be a communication platform? 7 years ago, did you think it was even remotely possible that there was going to be electric cars, battery-driven cars? You know, Tesla, for all that it is I think we all love Elon Musk just because he's entertaining. He has absolutely and unquestionably created a revolution. 2 months ago, BMW, Mercedes, and VW announced, one, that they are ceasing their hydrogen fuel cell program because it's at least 10 years out. Number two, they are all going to work together on supercharging stations in continental Europe. And number three, in 5 years, their fleets are majority all going to be electric cars. And that's interesting because it drives an entire complex technology shift in auto manufacturing that people hadn't thought about for a long time. The demand is growing, the electronic content is exploding, and the things that we do, and I'll show you this in a few minutes, really help the electrification of these cars. This is a trend that is not changing, and it is not going away. And it's a trend that 5 and 6 years ago, I don't think any of us, I think I'm a technology nerd, I don't think I thought about it this way. So it is changing. 5G. We talk about 5G, and it sounds really interesting, and it's great. It's higher bandwidth. You will enable autonomous cars. Whether the regulators let us do fully autonomous is a different subject matter. But what happens with 5G, it's a shorter bandwidth, it's a shorter wavelength. You will have 5 or 6 times the number of cell towers. It's going to be a huge revolution in what happens. And these investments are exploding. In the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen $500 billion of announcements from car companies and 5G companies. This is done on the back of a material called silicon carbide, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. But if I take that down a level, what does that mean to me? My customers, so we went public in December. We did a pre-IPO in the fall, and we were talking to the bankers, and we were trying to get our customers to talk to the bankers, references, and this is a very secretive industry. It's a very secretive technology. I don't want to tell anybody about it. It was a struggle getting people to give references. Now, an announcement goes out weekly from somebody about how they're adding capacity for this material called silicon carbide. Cree is the largest provider in the world. 6 months ago, they would never have made this type of announcement. They're going to put $1 billion in CapEx to increase the output. And I'll show you what that is in a second. That's interesting. It's a great number. It's a great headline. But for someone like us who makes the machines, the real money in that announcement was a 30x increase in output. They have to buy a vast number of machines over the next 5 years. And they're 70% of the market, and I'll show you where I think the market goes for us and what the opportunity is for us. And we see people coming into this market every couple of weeks. We get a call from a new entrant. Hey, we're going to make silicon carbide wafers. We're going to make silicon carbide chips. It is literally at the very first step in what's happening right now. But why? I showed you this thing with sand, and it's sand. It's easy, right? It's an abundant material. Silicon carbide is not an easy material to deal with, except think about a car battery. I've got a car, and I can give you 250 kilometers with that car, with that battery, that lithium 90 kilowatt battery. If you redesign that whole powertrain with these chips, silicon carbide chips, I can increase the range on that battery by 30%. I can reduce the cost of my car by $1,500. I can make the car lighter, which makes the battery last longer. I don't have to put extra cooling in there. All of these pretty charts, which are very cool if you're a nerd like me, point to it is an undeniable fact and technical requirement that they have to do this. There's no more, a year ago, 2 years ago, there were some debates in the technical community about silicon carbide versus silicon. The war is won. Silicon carbide is instrumental to the enablement of battery cars and 5G communications. It's over. And there's a lot of very good technical reasons. It's very fun. But what you start to see, so then think about this. Now I have electrified cars. I got to have charging stations essentially wherever I have a gas station now. So think about the infrastructure that has to be built just to support the electrification of cars. It's massive. 5G, I told you a couple of seconds ago, is that there's 5 or 6 times the number of cell towers. So now you've got the 4G LTE, that's a big one. And this is going to be a regulatory question, right? How many cell towers do they let the cities put around? This is not a trivial discussion. We know that Telstra has talked about rolling out 5G circuits. These are just the very beginning stages of this. You're going to have these micro towers. You know, we put little graphics on the lights, street lights at the end of the streets. You're going to have these things all over the place. Now you have to have more chip production. And again, the thing I like about this is it's new. It's not, we don't have to break into something. There's no capability in place today. None. And we have to improve this. So this is what gets exciting about it. Even if you look at modest electric vehicle adoption over the next few years, you're talking about billions of dollars of semiconductor devices that have to be produced for electric vehicles. Again, interesting number, but what does that mean? Just the machines we make. I make machines that grind it, that shape it. I make machines that polish it. There's $500 million of opportunity for me, $500,000, $500 million, wish it was $1 billion, over the next 5 or 6 years, just to get the capacity in place to make these devices. And we are one of the leading companies. We've been working with this material for a decade. We're one of the few people that has experience out there. There are companies that are going to try to come in. Of course, there's going to be competition that comes in, but it's a difficult material to work with. You have to have experience and credibility with these customers. We do have a very good position because we have machines that are running today in these customers' factories. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit to the IPO because we raised the capital for very specific reasons. If you read our prospectus, so it came out in December, we said that we were coming to the market, and I would argue, and Ryan, our CFO, would argue, we came for the right reasons, right? We had real customers, we were growing, and we were developing technology that the customers were asking for. So we're coming out with machines that we have been specifically asked, can you make a machine to do this? And we're doing that. On the left side, we have it's called a grinder. You take this material and you shape it and you give it a very, very perfect thickness. Every wafer has to be the same. This has to be an automated process. They do this manually, and I'll show you that in a second. It's not a pretty picture when you're trying to run these thousands and millions of wafers by hand. At the end of the day, everybody has to have automation. There's no debate about that. We're releasing this machine. It's a silicon carbide polisher. We have not formally announced this machine, but we have customers that are ready to run wafers on this machine and ready to take this machine. So we raised the capital to grow the business and to bring these new machines out, and we're doing exactly what we said we were going to do. But what is the process? So what is the challenge? What is it I'm solving for the customer? Because really, at the end of the day, if I don't solve the customer's problem, it doesn't matter, right? Up on the top of this chart, you see a graphic of the manual effort. So these things are hand-loaded, and they take them from one machine to the next. You got to scrub them. They're dirty. It's nasty material, and you have to do that over and over and over again. We've already proven with our customers, you buy these two machines, you put a box of wafers in, it goes around, you pick the box up, you move it to the next machine, fully automated, no human intervention, it's clean, the wafers are done. And this matters because that's what it looks like when you do it by hand. It is a dirty, nasty, you got a human in there literally picking up these wafers. In some cases, they've got acid slurries. It's really not a pretty environment to do this in. We give them a good clean, very pretty process. We give them a good machine, and we give them a clean, dry wafer out. And that, my friend, is really where it matters. You give them that wafer, it's clean, they can ship it off to their customers, they can do further processing with it. You don't have these manual operations of over and over, of unloading, and then you break. And really what it comes down to is, where's the value, right? What do we do for them? The value is very simply, and you don't have to be in my industry to understand this, if anybody that's made anything, manual processes are not very good yield. You break a lot of things, and you have humans picking up substrates, they're putting it down. It's a terrible manufacturing environment, and the customers are telling us, they've been very clear with us, the yield, the number of substrates they get when they start to when they're done with these processes is about 50%. So now they have to put in double the amount of capital to get the same amount of output. When they move to single wafer with our machines, they get 90% output. So it's an economic fact that they can't continue doing it with that dirty, ugly process. They have to go to a more fully automated process. So, you know, this machine on the left is $650,000. The new machine is $1.2 million. We are fundamentally altering the business model of the company because we're designing machines that have specific advantages for the customers where they've already told us, yes, if you can deliver me that machine, I'll pay that price. So for me and my engineers, it's very simple. All right, I want 50% gross margin. We're going to sell it for $1.2 million. Here's where your cost has to be. So we start the program at the end. Number one, we've already run wafers. We've already proven the process. We already know we can do it. Number two, the engineers know what they have, what their budget is. You know, engineers are great, but if you give them a white sheet of paper, you just don't know what you're going to get back. You give them a specific target and say, you can spend $450,000 and that's all you can spend. They're great. They know what to go do. So I like it, you know, as a CEO because we've done, I think, a very good job in our company of targeting a very specific set of applications with a very specific set of requirements, and the engineers just engineer into that. So we're happy. The customers are happy because they're buying machines. And we thought about this, right? We have spent a lot of time with the customers. Yes, if you're in a batch, you can do 5, 6 wafers at a time. That's more than one, okay? But when you start to look at other things like wafer-to-wafer consistency, these things are in automated factories. They have to have the perfect thickness every time. You start thinking about flatness and some of the mechanical characteristics, getting the wafer ready for the next steps. These are all things that we've already validated with our customers. We've already run wafers. We've already done the experiments. Now we just have to deliver the machine. So, you know, back to the beginning, we went public to raise capital to deliver some new machines, and this is the first one. We started this program in August of last year. We will deliver the first machines in September of this year. Frankly, it's one of the fastest programs I've ever been part of, and the customers are responding. So we identified a problem in the industry. We engineered a solution for that industry, and we're being validated with the customers who are telling me, I said dinner with a couple of them last week, if the machine is on your floor in July, I'll take it as soon as it's finished. So we just got to, you know, I keep telling the team, you just got to finish. You just got to finish. Just a little bit on our financials. We gave first half guidance of 15 to 16 million. That ends in June. We're a calendar year company. We've told people we did 27.3 in fiscal 18. We're going to be a little bit higher than that in fiscal 19. The real change comes when we start delivering high volumes of these new machines in 2020. You know, around that 35 million-ish, we'll probably break even. I think we're a little behind the original revenue target that was in the IPO prospectus. We were supposed to be at 20. Some of our old legacy customers have moved deliveries out. It's not the end of the world because really we went public on the opportunities as they relate to silicon carbide. So, you know, I think I like it when in our industry, it is particularly difficult because you have to shoot the arrow pretty far in front of the target. So we were aware of these trends when we started the program. We knew where the customers were going. The machine is going to be there, but these macro trends are here and they're undeniable. The electrification of cars and 5G, first inning of that game. We've got a good product team. I think we're focused, and quite honestly, I think our management team is very experienced. They're just superstars, and we're very, very close to the customers. So I think we have all the right things in place. We'll continue just to execute as we go forward on the company. And with that, I'll leave you to Mark. Thank you.